everybody. This is Z coming to you from Awanna Holdings Note Edition. So I am on my second installment this month with my guest, Miss Lorraine Millington from Melanin Homes. And she's going to be talking to us a little bit about what she's up to in the note space. But before we get into that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Awanna, better known as Z. And I'm here from Awanna Holdings, and I kind of like to bring on guests every month or so to talk about notes and things that are going on in the note space. And I've been a note investor myself for a little bit, almost 4 years now, and retired military, retired Navy. Today is Veterans Day, although you probably won't be seeing this video on Veterans Day. So thank you all for your service, my fellow servicemen and women out there. Let me take it to Lorraine and let her give you a little bit about herself, her business, what she's doing, how she's got into it, and all of that. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, Z. And I want to say it's really such a pleasure to be on your platform and on your show once again. I know we've met, all the days went into each other, but I feel like it's been at least a few months since the last time that I've been on your show. And so for those who might not be familiar with me, my name is Lorraine Millington. I'm a native New Yorker. I've lived in New York City, more specifically the Bronx, basically all my life. Yeah. A little professional background. So as Z mentioned, I am a mortgage note investor. And part of the disclaimer in terms of, not giving any legal advice or any financial advice. I also am a taxpreneur. So I have my own tax business. And then also, I know a lot of hats, but I'm also a mindset and peak performance breakthrough coach. So a lot of different hats, but all for the sole purpose of not only getting better personally, but financially and emotionally as well. So it all ties together, and I'm sure we'll get into a couple of things.
We know that. So Lorraine, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you back on again, and like I said, again, this is your second time here on my show, and again, I thank you for being here. Was I saw a post where you said that you had a training program, mentor program out, and I was like, oh, I gotta have you on to talk about it, because I didn't realize that you had one. So of course I wanted to get that information out there so that people would have another resource to learn about note investing. But before you get into that, tell us a little bit about, normally I would do this, but I think I'm going to switch it up and have my guests do it now. So tell us, what is a note?
Sure. So a note is from a very basic standpoint, a note is a piece of paper, right? And when we talk about notes in relation to real estate, a note is a piece of paper. It's a debt instrument that is secured by a hard asset, which in this situation would be the property. And so we see notes in various aspects. If you have people who, especially with the cell phones now, with the flex plans and the leasing and all of that, you are essentially signing a note, which is a document that says, I promise to pay back X amount of money that you're borrowing over a certain term. So in real estate, we're speaking either generally 15 or 30 years at a certain interest rate. So this note outlines the particular terms of the deal or of the purchase of this property. And then you, as the note investor, you're purchasing that piece of paper with the anticipation of now receiving payments from that particular borrower as if you are the bank. So I took it, I think, a little bit step further in terms of what is a note, but we're on the path to seeing how this all applies from a real estate standpoint.
Yeah, no, that's good. So a lot of people are very familiar with, like, when people do fix and flips or real estate, if you will. So I always like to make that distinction that we buy the paper, we buy the lien
We are buying the debt that is associating with the property, not the property itself, at least in these initial stages. So one of the bigger takeaways to keep in mind in relation to a note is that the note is the debt. It is the lien associated with the property. And so we as investors are buying that debt or that lien, not the property itself, depending on the paper, but we'll keep it simple.
Okay, all right. So let's get a little bit into your program. So
sure.
We're talking a training program, a coaching program, mentor program.
I want to say it's a combination of all three. And I say that because how my business has basically transitioned into this period from the last time I was on your show is, but the first time that I was on, obviously I was still investing in notes and I was looking to scale the business. And one thing that I don't think most people understand at that stage is being able to leverage your resources, right? Whether it's your own knowledge, whether it's your own education or your own capital. And sometimes until you do have the ability to leverage or even use OPM, which we call other people's money, it can sometimes be a slower what's the word that I'm on? A slower path to growth if you aren't necessarily leveraging other resources. And so what I've learned in this time that I've been investing in notes, and I've been investing in notes since 2019 at this point, is to be able to not only educate and share information about notes, but also help others who are also interested in this type of niche or in this type of industry, but may not know exactly where to go. I mean, there's definitely information available, whether you're taking a formal training course, whether you're watching, videos on YouTube, or whether you're someone who's in the space that you can kind of have conversations with. But there's a big difference between getting a more literal or practical knowledge of notes versus more of a hands-on aspect of it, right? And so a lot of the investors that I would speak with who would reach out to me wanting more information about notes were able to get information in terms of what is a note, judicial not versus non-judicial states, contracts, and all the things, but then not necessarily knowing, okay, well, what's the next step? I know these various terms and the terminology associated with note investing, but what do I do with that information now, right? Like, how do I prevent myself from having like analysis paralysis, right? And the answer to that is, generally speaking, doing the work, right? Actually going out and purchasing a note or partnering with someone. And that can be pretty intimidating for a lot of people, especially with this being a newer concept for most people and most investors. Not necessarily knowing what that next right step is can prevent a lot of people from getting started. And so in relation to that, the mentorship program was born, and really the idea behind it is to give somebody that helping hand. But basically, I'm reaching out my hand to that person who's reaching out, looking for help and looking for guidance and looking for assistance, and being able to give them whatever supporting tools they need, whether they're struggling with being able to price a note, right? Whether they're struggling with knowing how to do due diligence or what they should be paying attention to as they're doing due diligence. If they're struggling with, maybe I don't have all of the capital right now to purchase a note, but I'd like to partner with someone. So knowing how to be a good JV partner, or how to identify a good JV partner for yourself. So it's a bit different than a training course where you're kind of going more, generally speaking, you're getting more of a foundational education or coverage relating to notes. This is taking more of that foundational knowledge and also taking some hands-on knowledge and saying, okay, this is how you should be approaching looking at a note or pricing a note or whatever it is.
So if I were one of your client students,
mentees, yes.
how would that look for me? So I reach out to you, Lorraine. I'm like, hey, I want to get into buying mortgage notes. What's that gonna look like?
And as I'm sure you're familiar, mortgage notes is definitely, or just real estate in general, for the most part, is definitely a relationship business. And so I want to make sure that I'm not only showing up and providing value to the mentees that I'm working with, but that I'm also satisfying that missing puzzle piece, if you will, that will help them move along to getting to where they want to be, whether that's as a note investor or starting a note business or whatever that is. Okay. And so when I'm initially meeting with someone, we are having conversations. We are dialoguing based on, okay, well, where are you now and where would you like to be? Because unless you have that understanding of, okay, I know I want to purchase notes, or maybe it's, I know I just want to get more information relating to notes so I can bring this opportunity to other people. Whatever that is, we're going to dialogue and we're going to have some conversations to make sure that we're on the same page, so that if we do happen to start talking about joining our mentorship program, that what we're offering is what you're looking to I guess essentially what you're looking for to get what you want.
So is that gonna be look like you helping them establish like their LLC or things like that, all the other minutia that come along with?
I would say, I mean, and my company, we do have the ability, to set up entities nationwide. And when I say entities, that's primarily LLCs and corporations, not necessarily like the IRAs and the solo 401ks and those type, like the retirement accounts. I'll just loop that all in one basket. We do have the ability to do that, but that is generally, I mean, that can be handled. I can have someone on my team do that, right? That's generally not the obstacle that are preventing people from getting started. That's just again, a foundational piece that can get done. It's really the mindset and the confidence behind getting started with notes. And just think about, even as I was getting started, right? I mean, I've had a mentor, I still have a mentor. I'm sure you have the same. It's very important.
Many.
Yes, many, exactly, for various areas of your business and even in your life, right? So I'm not sitting here saying that someone can't, venture out and do this opportunity on your own, but especially if you're new to this space, it's really beneficial to make sure you know what you're doing, because all investments are a risk, right? But once you have a strong team or you have a strong foundation behind you, now it's more of a calculated risk than kind of just, throwing things against the wall to see what sticks, right?
So a mentee coming to your program, are they going to be like in a cohort setting, or is it you just are mentoring them, like you said, one-on-one, and they just call you for whatever you need? Or are you I guess formulating a custom path for them, or
sure,
for them based on their goals, I guess?
So I am a bit, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, I am a bit of a systems and processes type of person. Like I like organization and liking to know, okay, what are we working on and where are we going? That's just how I operate. And so kind of going back to how I initially am speaking with a potential mentee and making sure that we're on the same page, all of these conversations are crafted around, okay, well, what do you need assistance with and how can I potentially help? So once we've kind of ironed out that process of, okay, what is the one area, at least in as it stands right now, what is the one area that you would really like to take a deep dive and get more knowledge on so that you can move forward to what it is you're looking to accomplish within note investing? And what I've noticed, it generally stems around similar topics. So again, it either stems around wanting to know how to analyze a tape and do due diligence, right? Or it's around, and we both know this from being note investors, that you make your money on the buy. And so a lot of people, especially newer investors, are like, well, I don't even know what a deal looks like in the note space, right? So can you help me even just identify a deal? Sure, that could be something that we definitely take a deeper dive on through the mentorship. How do I look at the paper? What am I looking at when I'm doing, like, looking at a collateral file or whatever it is? What is a collateral file, right? So it's all of these different topics that, and the way I have the mentorship structured is that, yes, you get me one-on-one, and to be able to not only have an understanding of someone who is in the space, who is actually investing in notes and doing the work, but then you also can ask questions. And generally speaking, from a training course or whatever it is, you can't necessarily ask questions. I mean, yes, maybe you can send in an email or whatever, but being able to have someone in real time that has experience that you can bounce ideas off of and ask questions of and get a true understanding of what it is that you may be hung up on or stuck on, I think is very valuable, especially as a newer note investor, or even if you've done a few deals.
So with your program, you are not providing notes to your mentees. You're just I guess educating them on getting to the point where they can get their own note and do their due diligence and everything that they need.
Absolutely. And I will say that in addition to the mentorship program that my company, Melanin Homes, offers, we do have the opportunity for a partnership opportunity as well. So if after you've now gotten comfortable with the concepts and your own strategy, knowing what your criteria is in order to be able to purchase notes, now that you have that education and that knowledge, yes, maybe now you're more comfortable to go into a partnership, whether it's with my company or being able to partner with another note investor. But what's really important, and what I emphasize with the mentees that I'm working with now, is that, again, as we know, not all money is good money, right? And so whether you're looking to just get more comfortable being able to seek out notes on your own, or if you want to be able to go out and either work with OPM, work with other people's money, or you have people approaching you wanting to partner with you, the purpose of this is knowing what it is that you're looking for and knowing who it is that you're working with, because that's super, super important, especially in this large but small niche within real estate, right?
Right. And so is there any focus on first or second position, performing or non-performing, or is it kind of all encompassed? And I don't know if you might get into the little more complex things like we were talking a little bit earlier before we started about seller financing or contracts for deed, what is it, lease options, little stuff like that.
Yep.
Will your program progress to that level, or like you said, is it just going to be, I guess, basic for however much or little the person wants to learn?
And that's really a great question, because I come across investors at various stages in their note journey, right? Like, generally speaking, the people who I have been coming in contact with, who have been reaching out to me, are generally newer to notes. So we're kind of starting on, it's baseline for us, but for some people it's still like high level, right, in terms of understanding all of these concepts and phrases. But we're generally staying around the surface level stuff, if you will. I do have a few clients that I'm working with that are more along the partnership level, that it's like, okay, I know this foundational stuff. I know some of the baseline things. Now let's get into strategy. And so some of the things that you were touching upon in terms of understanding what we're forecasting for 2023, right? The influx of potential non-performing loans, especially because as interest rates start to go up and people begin to default, or even some of the defaults that have already been on the market now, as the court systems are starting to catch up and now starting to process a lot of these defaulted loans, we will potentially see more non-performing come on the market, right? Or even going back to interest rates and inflation and how that affects the consumer, right? So interest rates going up, yeah, it sounds great for the banks, but it's not great for the consumer. And that means that they're going to have to spend more money in order to purchase homes. With them having to spend more money and inflation creating a limited supply of money available, this is where the crunch comes in, right? And so as an investor, understanding those things, now, okay, how do I pivot? How do I prepare myself for what's to come down the line? And a lot of that goes along with creative financing. And how creative financing works within the note space is a lot of seller financing. You creating notes on properties that have more favorable terms for borrowers. So you're the lender in these situations, and you're creating more favorable options to provide opportunity for people. What was so, or even like if you're working with a seller, right? Now creating creative financing on terms. So maybe, because also with interest rates and inflation comes the housing market now starting to correct itself, right? So the past 2 to 3 years where we've had home values skyrocket, like literally overnight, right? Now, as we've kind of been settling in a little bit, now those home prices are starting to come back to level, right? So think about this. If you were the seller of a property and maybe you bought at the height of the market and now you want to sell, you aren't necessarily going to get that high price that you wanted, maybe even 3, 4, 6 months ago, right? So having the understanding as an investor to say, you know what, I can still make that higher price happen for you, but it's actually going to happen on terms now. So I'm not going to be able to give you that, inflated price amount now all at once as a lump sum. But if you're willing to work with me on terms, then over time, yes, you can still get that amount that you want. And so a lot of that strategy is, like you said, definitely a more advanced, higher level. But you can't start there as a newer investor, or even having purchased a couple of notes. Like, this is something that you build upon. And so it's super important, in my opinion, to have someone that you can not only trust, but has the knowledge and is growing with the market, right? Because a lot of times when you're dealing with, I don't know, gurus and experts and all of those things, are they growing with the market, or are they still talking about things that happened 2 years ago, right? That's not necessarily applicable or relevant nowadays, right?
True.
So
also, aren't you still a realtor?
I am. I do have my real estate license. I mean, and that's part of it, right? Like, you stay on top of all aspects of the business, not just necessarily, because it all plays into each other. Like, if we didn't know what was happening from the retail space, from within real estate, and how that affects the note space, it all ties together. It really does.
And so, since you are not providing notes to your mentees, they don't have to be accredited, do they?
Correct.
Let's talk about what accredited means.
So essentially, an accredited investor has a net worth, depending whether you're an individual or you're married, you have a net worth of at least, I want to say, $1 million, not including your personal residence. So for most people, a lot of your assets, or what you have in your portfolio, can give you a net worth of a certain amount, right? And so in this situation, to be considered an accredited investor, and this comes from the SEC, I want to say, like, that 3-letter word that we're not always too happy with, but in being an accredited investor, your net worth has to include assets that do not that do not include your primary residence. So whether you have rental property, stocks, oil, commodities, whatever it is, plus your income, whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate professional, though all of those assets, all of your net worth has to be at least $1 million in order for you to be able to consider an accredited investor. And what's so great about this point that you're making is that, I mean, there's a lot of money in this world. Let's just, keep it real. There's a lot of money in this world, but how many people can actually consider themselves an accredited investor, right? And so having the ability, whether you're looking to get your feet wet, getting your feet wet, as with a mentorship or even a training program, having the ability to get the knowledge so that maybe you partner with an accredited investor, or maybe you work one-on-one with a broker, so you don't necessarily have to buy a certain amount of assets in notes. I think that's super important. And I don't offer inventory to my mentees because it's really important for me, based on what it is that we're working on in the mentorship capacity, to make sure that you have that solid and that down before we start incorporating all of these other factors. Now, if we're working together from a partnership standpoint, then yes. Then we will be looking at live inventory, and we will be making sure that we get assets accommodating to your criteria of what you're looking to purchase within the note space. But from a mentee standpoint, a lot of times we're not even at the point of actually analyzing deals for purchase, because we need to make sure we have the groundwork laid out, right? So there's definitely a process.
Okay, all right. I think that's good. So you all will have the opportunity to ask any additional questions of Lorraine once this is posted. It'll obviously be on all social media outlets, and I'll be monitoring, and we'll also have Lorraine's information up at the end of this video where you can contact her and get in on some good note education.
Don't be intimidated, guys. Just, if you're looking to get started, and there's maybe that one or two pieces that's holding you back, I certainly, highly recommend that you look into a mentor, a coach, a hands-on training program, because the worst thing that we can do is be in the same place we were in, a couple of months ago, last year, even yesterday, right? So don't let a little hesitation hold you back from moving towards what it is that you want.
Don't let it scare you, because once you do it, or once you actually start, you'll see that, man, I should have did this.
Yep. All it takes is someone explaining a concept in a different way that maybe didn't land for you before. They'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Right. And it's just that one shift, right?
Okay. Well, everybody, y'all will have the opportunity to do that. So you all contact Lorraine, get in touch with her, and have her give you some note information. Lorraine, thanks again so much.
Appreciate you, Z. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Bye.